Story 1. I'm 18 years old, 17 years old when this happened. I live in the Netherlands and work at a local supermarket as a stock clerk. I'm not sure how to translate that accurately. Almost every week, we have a discount on certain items. It's called the bonus, and sometimes, when you buy 2-3 items from one brand, you get a special product from that brand, a Lipton iced tea hat when you buy a certain amount of bottles, etc. That week, when you bought 3 items from this kid's brand, you would get this rather creepy-looking doll. This is basically what the story is based around. Oh, how glad I am that we don't offer kids toys with these products anymore. Just like everyone in this forum, I never thought something like this would happen to me, but here we go. It did. I was working in the afternoon on a Thursday as usual when a kid entitled Kid walks by slowly. I, of course, don't think anything of this as I am just doing my job. She walks by about 3 times, and the 4th time she asks me if the dolls are out of stock. I explained to her that more will be coming that evening and that she would unfortunately have to wait. She asked how late, and I told her that they would probably arrive after closing time because of a delayed shipment, so she would have to wait until the next day. She walked away with quite a sad face, and I felt bad for her, though I continued working. I didn't really think about it anymore. Fast forward a bit to around 2 hours later. It's almost closing time, just 5 more minutes, and I was pretty tired. This is where the entitled mother comes in, without the entitled kid. She looked incredibly angry. The mother stomps straight towards me and quite angrily asks me if I was the boy that told her daughter that she couldn't have one of those dolls. Me, being so tired, looks at her with a confused face, and after processing the question, I remember the kid that asked for the doll. Me, yes, that's me. Entitled mother, do you know you made my little girl cry? Me, I am sorry for upsetting your daughter, but the dolls are out of stock and won't arrive on time. Asterisk cuts me off asterisk. Entitled mother, I don't care about the time it arrives. You will get me a doll right now, or I will make sure you get fired. Me, I will do everything to make sure more dolls arrive as soon as possible. But the store closes in 5 minutes and... Asterisk cuts me off again asterisk. Entitled mother, I want to look in the back. I don't believe you. She was pretty much screaming at the moment. I saw a colleague of mine in another part of the store look up from the work he was doing and listen to where the noise was coming from. He just continued doing his work, and I did not want to call him because I thought I could handle this myself. Nah. I bring the entitled mother to the back where we keep the dolls when we have them. I normally never let people into this section because it's only for employees, but I didn't want her to go super upset, so I let her in. I grab one of the terminals. It's a small device that we use to keep track of the stock in the warehouse and the quantity of products we order in the next shipment. I show her that there are currently no dolls in the store, and before I can show her the order we placed for new dolls, she grabs the terminal, which is worth around €1,400 or $1,600, and throws it on the ground. I immediately asked my boss to come to the warehouse through my earpiece. The entitled mother knows she can't touch me or cause me any harm because A, I am under the age of 18, so it's basically child abuse, and B, there are cameras everywhere, and she already knew that. But apparently only point interest her, and she proceeds to kick all the wagons of goods we have standing in the warehouse. She also threw 6 packs of drinks on the floor, which made a horrible mess. After about 1 minute of this constant fear in me, my boss and 3 team leaders arrive in the warehouse to take a look at the situation. My boss was, well, not happy with the situation. Apparently, he took some kind of fight training because he grabs the entitled mother in a certain position so she is pinned on the ground with nowhere to move. One of the team leaders is asked to call the police. Within 20 minutes, the police arrived at our warehouse. I was surprised that the woman did not attempt to kick or slap my boss because she had been laying on the ground for this long. The 2 policemen are guided to the office by 2 team leaders, while me, the 3rd team leader, and my boss are still in the back of the store. After about 10 minutes, which felt like an eternity for me, the policemen and team leaders came back, and one of the policemen put the woman in handcuffs. After that, we all go to the office. The entitled mother is giving me death glares the entire way there. She also kind of whisperingly swears at me and calls me all the names out there. When we get to the office, I feared I would have done something wrong that would indeed get me fired. And this begins with the entitled mother having the right to talk before me. Of course, she lies in a pretty big way, literally saying that I harassed her kid. The officers probably already knew that was not the case and asked some questions about that to me. I was struggling to find the right words because I have never been in a situation like this, and I was on the verge of crying. I told them they needed to check the camera footage from 2.5 hours before this. They found the moment where the girl came up to me, and I didn't put a finger near her. The boss compliments me for keeping enough distance due to COVID, but that didn't really come through to me because I could only think of what could happen if they did not believe me. I knew the proof was there that I didn't touch the entitled kid at all. That was nice to know. The policeman knew enough and took the woman away from us, probably off to the police station where she deserves to be. My boss and team leaders compliment me on handling the situation and come with me to the warehouse to help me clean up. My boss noticed I wasn't in a good state to continue working, and he gave me a can of soda and told me I could go to the break room to take a break to cool down from this. Eventually, he just sent me home because I was too emotional from all the threats the woman was constantly telling me. When I came home, I told my parents the entire story, and they were shocked. They asked me if I wanted to continue working there, and I did. There was nothing wrong with the place itself, just very rarely the people that buy stuff there. My boss and I later made the rule of not doing this with dolls and children's toys anymore because this has already happened a few times before, not this bad. But still, I believed it would be better that way, and it really was for the best since we never encountered something like that again. Story 2. Okay, so a bit of backstory. I just recently turned 18 and got a backpack from my aunt a few months before. It's a really nice backpack, colored red, blue, and purple with a shark mouth in front. The thing with those types of bags is that they are only made in limited quantities, and then they're not made anymore. The cast is me, entitled woman, and helpful bus driver. Actual story, I'm currently studying to become a zookeeper, and the nearest school that specializes in that is about an hour away from where I live. Therefore, I take the bus every day. Yes, it's a bit of a distance, but hey, what can you do? So I was riding the bus about a week ago. It was going normally until like 30 minutes into the ride when an obviously entitled woman steps in. Due to COVID, you are not supposed to sit next to each other. And what did the entitled woman do? Yep, you guessed it. Since I'm very non-confrontational, I didn't say anything and just put my headphones in and listened to some music. Not even 5 minutes later, I feel a tap on my shoulder. Can I help you? Entitled woman. Oh, I just wanted to know where you got that backpack from. Oh, I got it from the internet as a birthday gift. And do you know that feeling when you know things are about to go sideways? Well, guess I was right. My son had a bag like that. I thought it's a limited edition, and I know it's sold out. But then again, he could have gotten it around the time I did. That's sad. When did he lose it? About a year ago. You couldn't get this bag a year ago. It wasn't even made at that point. I should never have said that. The entitled woman then started to scream at me, so everyone in the bus began to look at us. Not very comfortable for me, by the way. I know you stole it from my son, and if you don't give it to me right now, I will call the police to have you arrested. Even though I knew it was mine, I still got scared. I'm a male and around 190 centimeters, a big boy. But still very sensitive. It doesn't take much to make me break down sadly. The bus came to a stop, and in came my savior who heard it all. Enter the helpful bus driver. Ma'am, the police have been called, and we will solve this peacefully. The entitled woman looked with a smug grin as the police arrived 10 minutes later. Police Officer 1. So what seems to be the problem? Entitled woman, still screaming. This little brat stole my son's backpack and I demand it back. Police Officer 1 says to me, is that true? Me. No, officer, I swear it's mine. Police officer too. Do you have any way to prove it? I was about to say no when I remembered. I can call my aunt. I called her. Hey auntie, can you just quickly tell me what you gave me for my birthday? My aunt, confused. Yeah sure, I gave you that backpack. And what color is it? It's red, blue and purple, oh and has a shark mouth at the front. Thanks, I'll explain everything when I see you. She then sends a picture of me opening the box with the backpack inside. The date, November 15, 2020. The entitled woman goes pale. She then tried to take my bag and make a run for it, but the helpful bus driver closed the doors before she could get out. The entitled woman was then arrested for attempted theft, and I got an apology from almost everyone on the bus. To think people like this exist. Story 3. In my early 20s, I met a guy, let's call him Gilderoy, through online dating that I had previously known in high school. He was kinda cute, appeared to be a sweet and kind romantic, and took me to a nice restaurant. After a couple of dates, we started getting serious, and that's when the 6 months of relationship hell began. Gilderoy was a narcissistic jerk, and I was sadly too blind and desperate to see it. From the start, he was a compulsive liar, lying about everything under the sun and claiming accomplishments that weren't his own. Over 6 months, he would constantly accuse me of cheating with platonic friends, even though I was a tomboy. He also wouldn't allow me to be friends with any of my guy friends, pushed me away from my friends and family by constantly manipulating everything they said to make me not trust them, and demanded complete obedience from me, even if I didn't want to comply. This led to Gilderoy making me buy him everything from groceries and cigarettes to CDs and over-the-counter meds for him to get high off of, racking up a $4,000 bill on my credit card, as well as driving him anywhere he needed to go. He didn't have a car, including to court dates, sugar deals, being picked up from jail, and once to a psychological evaluation. He was diagnosed with paranoid personality disorder, but refused to take meds or seek treatment, because he thought I was constantly cheating on him. He also convinced me the only way to win back his trust was to allow him access to my phone history and texts, my email accounts, and all social media accounts, so he could always keep tabs on my honesty, though he still constantly accused me of lying. Our love life was far worse. I made Gilderoy use protection, but one night he slipped it off and finished inside of me. I was paranoid of illnesses and was freaking out, but he convinced me he was clean and everything was fine and told me I should just stop being crazy and paranoid. The next time we went to be intimate, I asked for him to use protection, but he said he didn't need to cause we didn't last time. I told him it would still make me feel comfortable, to which he hurt me while saying it would be pointless since he finished in me before, and proceeded to have his way with me. From then on, he would demand unprotected intimacy, even if I wasn't comfortable with it, and would even let his roommates watch when I didn't want them to. I even found him in his roommate's bed with his roommate one morning when I came by to take him to a court date, and the door was open. It all ended after 6 months when I started to stand up for myself and demand some equality. I confronted Gilderoy one night and told him that if he could have access to my social media, emails, and text messages, I should be allowed access to his. He thought about it for a while and slowly agreed, telling me he would give me the passwords in the morning. 3 days later, he finally gave me the passwords, and I looked through his emails, most of which had months of emails deleted, but I did find some emails proving he was cheating on me with several different women within the first couple months of our relationship. He couldn't remember when we started dating, and one of the women had even vandalized my car. I used this as grounds to end our relationship permanently and hightailed it out of there. The aftermath didn't get any better. I found out about another woman that he was cheating on me with at the time of the breakup, who was a decade older than him with children. Let's call her Regina. I took the time to write Regina a warning email and listed signs and red flags to look out for, to which she blew me off, saying they were deeply in love. He would never do that, and that I was just jealous. I also found out that he had an illness, and after talking to his friends, I found out that he knew about it 3 years prior to me and never got treatment for it. I got tested and took the antibiotic till I was clean. The revenge. Around a week or so after the breakup, Gilderoy started bragging on Facebook that he had accepted a job offer that paid in the nicer part of 5 digits, especially for someone in their early 20s. I remembered I still had his login info to his email, so I logged into his email from a random computer and simply wrote his new boss an email explaining he respectfully found a better position elsewhere and that he would have to decline the position. His new boss replied giving thanks for the notice, and I promptly deleted the emails. Gilderoy showed up for work on his first day to being told he was replaced. After that, he proceeded to try and embezzle several thousands of dollars out of my parents through threats of lawsuits, to which he failed because I was over 18 at the time, and not the legal responsibility of my parents. Plus, their lawyers found his long list of criminal history that would cause any judge to throw out his case. Since then, Gilderoy has stalked me for over a decade. He will occasionally try to get in touch through texts, emails, or phone calls. Once he emailed me a couple of days after I got married to tell me he got married to Regina that day. Oddly enough, Regina had gotten in touch with me after Gilderoy sent the email to ask more about the signs I had warned her about cause she found out Gilderoy was using sugar around her kid and was hurting her too. I told her to take an illness test and leave him. I also found out that while Gilderoy dated a friend of mine in high school, he tried to choke her to death after she caught him cheating, and she savagely bit a hole out of his arm till he let go. The last time I saw Gilderoy, I ran into him the week before my dog died of cancer. The encounter freaked me out so bad due to the distraught emotional state I was already in, so I confided in my friends about it. Some of them did some digging. He is currently miserable living with his grandmother. His wife divorced him. He has no job, has no car, and has no friends that trust him. He's pretty much alone. Story 4. I work as an assistant to a district attorney in a large German city. My boss is a well-respected man who drives an expensive car and, due to the nature of his job, has a special device that signals the police if he's in danger. Little did I know that this device would play a crucial role in one of the most bizarre incidents I've ever heard. It was a regular evening, and my boss was driving home from work. Suddenly, 2 young boys jumped in front of his car, forcing him to slam on the brakes. Naturally, he was terrified, thinking they might be seeking revenge for someone he'd put behind bars. Without hesitation, he pressed the emergency button on his device. As the police were silently mobilizing, the 2 boys started shouting at my boss. Boy 1, you tried to kill us. Boy 2, yeah, you almost ran us over. Before my boss could respond, 3 more boys appeared, joining in on the accusation. Boy 3, we're calling the police. Boy 4, you're going to lose your license for this. Boy 5, unless. The last boy, who seemed to be the ringleader, stepped forward with a proposition. Boy 5, give us all the money you have on you, and we'll let this go. Now, my boss is no fool. He knew the police were on their way, so he decided to play along and teach these punks a lesson. He agreed to their demand, but added a condition of his own. My boss, all right, I'll give you the money. But first, I need you all to sign an agreement stating that I paid you and that you won't press charges or inform the police. Surprisingly, these dimwits agreed. My boss quickly scribbled out a makeshift contract, and all 5 boys signed it with their real names. Can you believe it? As soon as they handed the paper back, they demanded the money. My boss just laughed. My boss, you idiots, I have written proof that what you've done is highly illegal. You're all going to jail. Just then, police cars came screeching in from every direction. The boys' faces turned as white as sheets. They looked like they were about to faint. In a moment of panic, one of the boys, let's call him Boy 3, thought he could make the evidence disappear. He snatched the paper from my boss's hands, right in front of the police. This, as it turns out, was their biggest mistake. The boys tried to run, but the police quickly caught Boy 1, Boy 3, and Boy 5. At first, the police thought they wouldn't be able to identify the other two unless someone snitched. But remember that contract? Yeah, they had all signed it with their real names. The police picked up the other two in no time. Fast forward to the court proceedings. Now, here's where it gets interesting. In Germany, there's still a law from the Nazi era that imposes a minimum sentence of 5 years for robbing a motorist. Boy 3 and Boy 5, both over 18, got hit hard. They each received 6-year sentences in adult prison, partly due to their prior criminal records. Boy 1 and Boy 2 weren't much better off. They each got 3 years in juvenile detention. Boy 4 was the luckiest of the bunch, getting away with just community service. When my boss told me this story, he couldn't help but smile. He said their faces when the police arrived were priceless. But what really got him was how they managed to incriminate themselves at every turn. My boss. You know, I didn't even have to do much. They pretty much destroyed their own lives. I couldn't believe how a group of young troublemakers could be so short-sighted. They thought they were pulling a fast one on a random motorist, but instead, they tried to extort a district attorney with years of experience outsmarting criminals. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on anyone in our office. These boys, in their attempt to make a quick buck, ended up facing serious jail time, and all because they couldn't resist the temptation of easy money and were too stupid to realize they were signing their own confessions. My boss often uses this story as a cautionary tale when we're discussing cases. It's a perfect example of how quickly a harmless prank can spiral into a life-altering mistake. And it's a reminder that in the world of law and order, karma can be swift and merciless, especially when you're dealing with someone who knows the system inside and out. Story 5. I was the one to outsmart a big telecom company. It all started when my old TV finally kicked the bucket. I decided to treat myself to a fancy new smart TV, thinking it would revolutionize our family's viewing experience. Boy, was I wrong. A couple of weeks after setting up the new TV, I had an epiphany. No one in my family was watching regular TV channels anymore. We were all hooked on streaming services. So, I thought to myself, why am I still paying for this TV connection? Now, here's where it gets tricky. My TV connection was bundled with my phone plan and internet service. It wasn't as simple as just calling up and saying, "Hey, cancel my TV." No, this was a custom plan with its own dedicated relationship team. Little did I know, I was about to embark on a wild ride. I spent the next few days making call after call to this so-called relationship team. It felt like I was trying to break up with a clingy ex who just wouldn't take the hint. Finally, after what felt like the 100th call, we reached a resolution. They agreed to convert my TV connection to a prepaid one, which I could then stop recharging. Problem solved, right? Wrong. For the next few weeks, I was bombarded with messages urging me to recharge my TV connection. It was like they were desperate for my money. Eventually, I received a message asking me to return the set-top box. I happily obliged, thinking this nightmare was finally over. The box was collected, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Good riddance, I thought. But the universe had other plans for me. Soon after, I started receiving calls from random call centers about recharging my non-existent TV connection. These weren't from the dedicated relationship team I'd been dealing with before. Something felt off. After some detective work, I just Googled it. I discovered this was now common practice in my country. The company had outsourced this part of their support to a third party. These poor souls were working from an outdated printed database that showed I still had an active connection. Since my disconnection happened mid-month and their database was from the beginning of the month, they were clueless about my updated status. I tried explaining the situation to these callers, but it was like talking to a brick wall. That's when I had a brilliant, or maybe devious idea. I decided to play along and have some fun with it. The next time I got a call, our conversation went something like this. Caller: "Sir, your TV connection needs to be recharged. Would you like to do that now?" Me: "Oh, I'm so glad you called. I've been having terrible issues with my TV. It's not connecting to the set-top box at all. I've tried calling support multiple times, but no one seems to be able to help. Caller: I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Let me book a tech support visit for you. And just like that, my plan was set in motion. Within hours, I got a call from a field technician. When he arrived at my house, I greeted him with a cold drink and explained the real situation. We had a good laugh about it, and he even suggested I keep up the charade a few more times for good measure. So, that's exactly what I did. Over the next few weeks, I had 8 different tech support visits. Each time, I'd greet them with refreshments, explain the situation, and we'd share a laugh. It was like a bizarre comedy routine that kept repeating itself. Finally, after the 8th visit, someone higher up must have noticed the pattern. I received a call from a supervisor. Supervisor: Sir, why do you keep booking tech support when you clearly don't have a connection anymore? Me: Well, I've been trying to tell your call center staff that I've disconnected my service, but they won't listen. So, I figured this was the only way to get the message across. I emailed him the recordings of my calls with the persistent call center agents. He sounded pretty annoyed, but I couldn't help feeling a sense of satisfaction. My unorthodox method had finally paid off. Now, I rarely get calls about my TV connection, maybe once every couple of weeks. When I do, I stick to my trusty script about the malfunctioning set-top box. If someone takes it seriously enough to try and book tech support, they quickly get a note against my account. Do not bother this gentleman. Story 6. Some time ago, I worked as a business consultant certified public accountant for young and startup companies. I was hired by a food delivery service referred to as clients similar to popular delivery apps, primarily catering to corporate clientele. After setting up the client systems for payroll, accounting, and banking, but not order entry or billing, the owner installed a new, state-of-the-art order entry and billing system. The new system appeared to function adequately, but sales taxes charged to clients were noticeably low. They seemed to use the same rate for all cities, suburbs, and counties, even though each locality had different additional rates over and above the base state rate. When I brought this to the attention of the owner, he insisted the new software company knew what they were doing and were experts in food delivery service billing. I later learned it was a small boutique firm from out of state with a highly persuasive salesperson. When I requested access to the system to check tax rates, I was told not to waste billable hours on the new system because he was certain they knew what they were doing. The owner was unwilling to pay my exorbitant hourly rate to check something that was brand new. I explained that if the taxes being collected were incorrect, his company would be liable for any shortfall. My examples of taxes being underbilled were met with, "You don't know what you are talking about." As the business grew, my consulting hours decreased. I primarily reviewed month-end financial information with the client after closing the books each month, while making the required deposits of collected sales tax to the State Department of Revenue. Malicious compliance. I had no control or access over the tax rates being billed, but I knew the state frequently scheduled audits of new companies after their first year of operations. If the client was unwilling to pay for a few hours to check the system, they would have to wait until it was necessary to pay for 40 billable hours to handle a state audit. Sure enough, in the 13th month after installing the new software, a notice was received from the state announcing an audit of the client's sales and used tax payments scheduled for the following week. To summarize, it was discovered that the new software did indeed only bill the base state sales tax rate, completely omitting both city and county taxes. The assessment for unpaid taxes, including penalty and interest, exceeded $40,000, not including my hourly rate to work with the state auditors. Additional billable hours were spent by me contacting the larger corporate customers and billing them for unpaid sales tax, recovering almost half of the assessment. Most were willing to pay after my warning to report them to the state for non-payment of use tax. The client blamed me for not insisting more strongly on changing the tax rates and terminated our relationship after it was felt as much as possible had been recovered from customers. Story 7. I'm not the person I'd be comparing my life to my cousin's, but here I am, feeling frustrated and misunderstood. Let me tell you about how different our lives have been and how he still has the nerve to criticize me. Growing up, my home life was far from ideal. My parents were, to put it mildly, not the supportive type. They seemed to take pleasure in putting me down, both mentally and physically. I spent most of my childhood just trying to survive rather than thrive. I remember one time when I was 14, I asked my mom to help me with a school project. Mom, can you help me with this assignment? I'm having trouble understanding it. Mom, figure it out yourself. You're so stupid, you'll never amount to anything anyway. That was pretty typical of the support I got at home. They never taught me anything useful, never helped me financially, and often actively worked against my success. From the age of 12, they wouldn't even pick me up from the bus stop if it was inconvenient for them. I had to walk 2 miles home, sometimes as late as midnight. Despite all this, I managed to slowly crawl my way out of that situation. I got a part-time job that wasn't great, but it was something. I put myself through school, got a decent full-time job, found a girlfriend, and finally moved out. Now I'm 35, and while I'm doing okay, the current economy means I'll probably never own a home or be able to afford having kids. My cousin, on the other hand, had it made from the start. His parents were incredibly supportive. They'd pick him up from parties at 1 a.m., even if they had to be up for work at 6 a.m. They always encouraged him and gave him positive feedback. He never had to work a crappy part-time job because his parents paid for everything while he was in school. When he was 22, he met a wealthy woman and moved in with her. She supported him financially for the next 5 years, allowing him to focus entirely on his studies and finish much earlier than I did. After graduation, his dad helped him land a cushy job at a big company when he was 28. A year later, his girlfriend's parents gifted them an acre of land in an expensive area, saving them about $100,000. They built a house on that land and are now expecting their first child. He's 32. The worst part is when we see each other at family gatherings. He has the audacity to lecture me about not working hard enough. During one particularly frustrating conversation, I tried to explain how different our situations were. You had a lot of advantages that I didn't have. Your parents supported you, your girlfriend supported you. You got a free piece of land. Cousin, I worked hard for my master's degree and I work hard at my job now. I just made smart decisions and managed everything myself. You could have done the same if you tried harder. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could he be so blind to all the help he received? His parents financed his education. Then his wealthy girlfriend supported him. He never had to work part-time during school. He got a great job through his dad's connections, and then got gifted a huge property worth over $100,000. On top of that, his wife's parents and his parents regularly give them gifts of $1,000 or $2,000 to help with house expenses. I just don't understand how someone can delude themselves into thinking all of this help equates to smart decisions and managing everything by oneself. How can he look at people who had it objectively harder and say we didn't work hard enough or didn't make smart decisions? During our last family gathering, I couldn't hold back anymore. Look, I'm happy that you're doing well, but you need to recognize the advantages you've had. Not everyone gets the kind of support you've received. Cousin, you're just jealous because you didn't work as hard as I did. Stop making excuses for your lack of success. At that point, I decided it wasn't worth arguing anymore. I've started avoiding him at family events now. It's just too frustrating to deal with someone so entitled and lacking in self-awareness. I can't help but wonder how people's brains can function like this. How can they be so blind to their own privilege? I've worked hard my entire life, overcoming obstacles that my cousin can't even imagine. Yet he still looks down on me. It's infuriating and disheartening.